Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. My wife is playing the piano in the background. It's a rainy Sunday here in Vancouver. A little bit of musical accompaniment. Today I'm going to talk about learning and my belief that learning has to come before studying. In other words, it's very difficult to study something that you haven't already learned naturally in some way. And this is particularly true of languages. And unfortunately, most of our educational situations involve an attempt to teach or an attempt to study something which we haven't already become familiar with. I remember once driving home in Tokyo in the 70s, listening to NHK radio. They had a program, or they had an educational channel, and I heard this sound coming from my radio in my car, and it went something like this: Ze a seras, ze a seras. And this went on, and I thought it was some kind of Buddhist chant. And then I found out that this was their radio English lesson. I don't know what they were trying to achieve. I remember buying a Korean CD, and I still remember that they began with all the sounds of Korean, which you had to listen to and repeat. You didn't know what they meant. And I still remember these sounds: Onyu po pyu. I don't know what it means. I never came across those sounds or words again, but that's what they had there for you. When you, like, I can remember too, starting into my Russian, a lot of the books will give you a whole list of cognates, words that are similar to other languages. 2 pages, 3 pages worth. What can I possibly do with those words? I can't possibly learn them. However, if I come across them and discover them, I'll be very happy to find a freebie word in Russian that I already know from some other language. But I can't possibly take them all at once until I have had that exposure to Russian. The same with grammar rules. You know, in Russian, for example, one rule that came at me fairly early was that for numbers, if it's 1 year, then it's the year is in the nominative. If it's 2, 3, or 4, it's in the genitive singular. But if it's 5 or more, it's in the genitive plural. And that's one, as in 21, 31, 41, it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay, kind of understand what you're saying there. But if that was the only rule I had to learn in Russian, I might be able to pick up on that. When you consider that there are so many rules about cases, and the same ending can be the genitive, the accusative, the plural, nominative, depending on gender and whatever. Sometimes the case it'll be this ending if it's animate, like animal or person, or some other ending if it's not animate. The verb to go, depending on whether you're going on foot, by train, or by car, is different, depending on whether you're going and coming back, or you're just going. All of these things that are very difficult to understand, particularly when you have no reference point. None. Now that I've been studying Russian for 3 years, these things are starting to seem natural to me. I can now go back to a grammar book and read this thing, and it starts to make sense. The same is true with sounds. You have all these rules that, and they'll even try and teach you this. When such a letter comes next to some other letter, the one will influence the other, and it's kind of pronounced differently. So I can't remember all these rules, and then they introduce the phonetic alphabet and stuff. But if you've never heard the word before, what's the phonetic alphabet going to do for you? So my big thing is, you can focus on studying something, on refining things, once you've got the language in you. There was a comment on my, let the words overflow video, where I said the main thing is just to let the words come at you, learn some, forget some, get some familiarity with the language, and work on gaining these words. And don't worry about what you forget. And so someone commented on my YouTube video here, well, yes, but I think you have to work on grammar and vocabulary at the same time. Nice theory. I can't do it. if you give me 2 or 3 things about the language, like verb comes at the end, a couple of things like that, I might be able to remember them. But very quickly, it's overload, it's tilt. I can't make head or tail of it until I have had a lot of exposure to the language. I had a similar comment from someone on where I had said, in terms of accent reduction, don't deliberately focus on that, especially not at the beginning. Just listen, and if you want to project yourself into that culture, that language, and imitate that person, you'll be able to do it. Slowly you'll get better and better at it. And this person sort of said, well, you really should work on your accents. So I said, well, why would you say that? And they came back and said, well, because when you spoke Portuguese, you didn't sound very good. You had strong Spanish influence on your Portuguese. Well, first of all, I have never claimed to be native-like in any of the languages that I speak. It's not my goal. I have never tried to do that. I try to imitate the native speaker, but I don't pretend that my goal is to achieve such a degree of accentless whatever language that people would mistake me for a native speaker. They will not. However well I speak it, I will betray somewhere that I'm not a native speaker. And languages that I'm not working on that hard, like Portuguese, of course I'm going to have a Spanish accent. People tell me I have a French accent in my German. So what? If I were an actor and I had a role where I had to pretend that I spoke Portuguese like a Brazilian or like a Portuguese, then that's very specific. Then I would work at it. I might get a special coach to coach me on my accent. But if my main goal is to enjoy the language, communicate, enjoy myself, I'm not going to worry about those things. So I guess what I'm saying here is that a lot of sort of deliberate studying, deliberate instruction is almost counterproductive. That there is this sophist saying that you can't learn what you don't already know. I would put it a different way. I would say that you can't deliberately study something that you haven't already learned or experienced. I think the brain works that way. Things come through, the brain kind of picks up on it a little bit. It goes in there somewhere in the head. And then you get at it again, and you get it. Like I'll often, if I start a new language, before we had Link, I would go out and buy Teach Yourself Korean, Colloquial Korean, somebody else's Pimsleur Korean, Asimil Korean, not Pimsleur because he's got too much English on there, but Asimil. And so then I would listen to the same stuff from 3 or 4 different sources. So again, I'm just passing it through the hippocampus, if you want, passing it through my brain. It settles in there somewhere. Then very similar content comes at me from another direction. And slowly, I'm sort of layering stuff in there that's going to stick. And once I have enough of that, then I might want to go and study, because there will be things that I don't notice. There will be things that can be pointed out in a grammar book, can be pointed out by sort of saying, well, really, you may have not have noticed, but in whatever language, they tend to drop this vowel before this consonant. And so you can see stuff there that, oh yeah, right, I kind of wondered about that, or even I never noticed. And so at that point, these little things can come along and help you. But they are just supplementary to the main task of learning, which I believe is done before you actually start studying. So my advice is, before you study something, try to learn it. Bye for now.